Thank you all for being here on our first neighborhood networking of 2021. We successfully made it through the really weird year of 2020, and we are off to a fantastic start. So neighborhood networking this morning with our guest, Tom Gerend. Oh, my apologies if I said it wrong. I'm not the best with last names. But he is the executive director of the Kansas City Streetcar Authority. We are so excited to have him with us this morning and to hear about what's going on with the streetcar. I'm sure all of you have been up and down Main Street at some point in time. So we're excited to see that happening and get that going. We also have their communications director, Donna Mendelbaum, who is with us. Thank you for joining us as well. You guys have some last names that are really challenging this morning. So thanks for bearing with me. But before we get started, as always, I want to give a quick shout out to our neighborhood networking sponsors. Without our sponsors, without our fantastic members, we would not be able to provide the fantastic events that we have. So I would like to give a shout out to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City, Mazuma Credit Union, and Delta Dental. Thank you so much for your continued support of the Chamber's efforts. And then specifically Unbound, Steve McLean, if you are with us, thank you for your continued support, specifically with neighborhood networking and also Menlo. So again, without our wonderful partnerships, without our fantastic sponsorships, we wouldn't be able to do these things. So we're glad to have you here. And then as you're gonna see, just a quick roll through of some of our leadership circle members, our president circle members. So lots of thank yous or lots of great faces this morning, representation. We're glad to see you. And I think that we're good to go. Brandon, if you want to kick us off with the rules, regulations, how this is gonna play out, and then we'll start talking to Tom.
The rules and regulations. Yep. Thanks, Katie, for that. Pretty easy morning. A lot of you have joined us for these in the past. We're going to get to know Tom a little bit and kind of hear about what they're doing with the streetcar, what's to come. I'm sure if you've driven up and down Main Street, you've seen all the construction going on, preparing for what's to come. So we're really excited for that. I'm actually looking out on Main Street right now, and I can see backhoes and cranes and all of that. So good to see that. Anyway, the morning's going to be very easy. We'll get to know Tom for a little bit. We'll open it up to Q&A to you all. So if you have any questions, think of those. You can send them in the chat, and we'll do a little Q&A around 9:30, 9:35, and then we'll jump into breakout rooms. So we'll divide everybody up into random breakout rooms. It's kind of a good time to meet some other chamber members, get to know what they're up to. We'll prompt you with some questions going in. Make sure to introduce yourself. And maybe say what company you're with as well. And if you have any suggestions on what you would like to talk about in those breakout rooms, let us know, and we can certainly make that so. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tom. I see him somewhere. There he is. I might make you the co-host so you can so everybody can see you. Tom, thanks for joining us. If you don't mind, just kind of giving us a little background of you and how you got involved with the Kansas City Streetcar Authority.
Sure. Well, first of all, happy Friday, everybody. The sun is shining. It's Friday morning. I'm pleased to be here, and we got a great group. So Brandon and Katie and Chamber folks, thank you very much for the invite, and thanks to Donna for helping to pull it together. It's Friday, so you're almost to the end of the week. Yeah, so my story is an interesting one. I came to Kansas City back in 2005 from Illinois, and my background was regional planning. And I came to work for the Mid-America Regional Council, focused on really thinking about how we as a Kansas City Metro better use transportation investment to fuel our growth and development strategy. How do we coordinate and link transportation infrastructure with things like land use planning and community development? And so I worked on a range of things while at MARC, and one of them was regional transit coordination across all of our many jurisdictions and counties. And that led me in 2010 to be working closely with some community leaders and some elected officials to lead a study, manage a study on a downtown circulator for downtown Kansas City. And so in 2011, we, while at MARC, led a study that concluded with the findings that we should advance a streetcar on Main Street in downtown as a start of a broader transit investment strategy. And that project got picked up. The city decided they wanted to advance it. We went through a lot of processes to finance the construction and find federal money. And in 2012, shortly thereafter, a new organization was formed, Kansas City Streetcar Authority, because we did not in the region have any capacity to deal with rail projects. We hadn't operated a rail system since 1957. We really did not have the expertise to do it. And so we needed to bring new capabilities. And the way the streetcar was funded with the Transportation Development District, there was a unique need to engage downtown property owners who were going to be paying into that district to have some representation and some voice in how the project would happen. They're paying the vast majority of the cost. Their thoughts and input on things like, is there a fare, on the brand of the system, on the hours, were really important. So the Kansas City Streetcar Authority was formed to really provide representation and to bring really specific capacity, new capacity to a system, to try to leverage that as a sort of a demonstration for what we as a region could do for higher quality fixed guideway transportation. And so I moved over in 2014, a few years before we opened, to really work with the voluntary board and no staff to figure out how do we go from a plan and building a project, which the city's really good at building things, to launching it, to operating it, to maintaining it, to marketing it. And so Donna was one of two and still only two dedicated streetcar employees that we brought on really early to help with the public communications, marketing, and community partnerships. So that's sort of what brought me to streetcar. I never thought I would be in the transportation world, to be honest with you. It's really sort of bureaucratic and lots of red tape, and things take a long time. But it was really in working at Mark and looking at how we're using transportation to influence, and in some ways in a negative way, how we grow our region. And streetcar and transit was really an opportunity to try to do that really intentionally. And so it's really through the community development planning angle that I came to streetcar as a catalyst for regional growth and development. And once I got here, we said it's not about 2 miles. It's about how we grow a bigger system over time. So right after we opened in 2016, we started to focus on how we grow it. I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
That's fantastic. Donna, I wish that I would have known that fun fact of calling Tom Streetcar Tom before I butchered that last name. But Tom, that is great information. Can you talk a little bit about what the economic impact will be on, and how the streetcar expansion through Midtown will be impactful to those businesses along that line?
Sure. So first, let me just start with the highlights for downtown. So we know downtown, we thought streetcar would induce economic development based on what we had seen from around the country. And before we opened the project, and actually before we financed it, there's a lot of people who didn't believe that outcome could be realized. They thought it was just a sales pitch to con people into building rail transit, and that there wasn't a true connection. And so we did a lot of work downtown to try to set up the streetcar route, the policies from planning and city development, from coordination with property owners, et cetera, to try to leverage that investment. And what we've seen, and not all because of streetcar, but what we've seen is record levels of private investment flowing into downtown to build new housing, to build new office really for the first time, to build obviously lots of hotels pre-pandemic, and over $4 billion of capital investment into our downtown streetcar area. Again, not all because of streetcar, but many of the developers have told us they're here because of streetcar largely. It's a major influencing factor. And so as we thought about growing the system, obviously, growing the benefits that we've seen downtown is one of the key opportunities. And it's one of the reasons why the extension down Main Street through the heart of the city, connecting our two largest employment centers in downtown and the Country Club Plaza, right through Midtown, and obviously to the University of Missouri, Kansas City, was such an amazing opportunity. It's the center of our city. It's also the center of our region in many ways. And we really positioned that to be the spine of a regional system that could be connected to east and west bus routes to Johnson County down in the Country Club Plaza, routes to east, the Northland from the north side of the route. And really obviously activating and advancing a community vision for Main Street that had been years in the making. So I like to say, it's really not about the shiny streetcars. You know, streetcars are, in part is it's a means to a broader vision that we have for our city, that our neighborhoods have for themselves, and that can be more true for Midtown. They've had a vision for higher density, revitalized neighborhoods, bringing people and jobs back to a corridor that had been, in many cases, vacated over 40 to 50 years, where we lost population and we lost jobs. And so the opportunities for growth and development are really amazing. And we'll see new buildings, and you'll see a lot of news in the Business Journal specifically about development opportunities that are being activated right now because of the streetcar opportunity and really being pushed faster. Those things are awesome, but one of the things that's even more cool than that is the impact that we get to have on existing businesses. What we saw downtown, we did some surveying of existing businesses. So the new development gets a lot of attention because oftentimes it's a surface parking lot to a 5-story building, and it's a really powerful image of transformation. But the thing that's harder to see, and we try to do some data collection on this, is, you know, what do sales collections look like for the restaurant that's already there, or the barber shop that's already there, or you know, the small retailer that's already there. And what we saw downtown in our surveying before and after was 97% of the businesses stated they saw a positive impact. The vast majority of those businesses indicated added hours, they added staff, they changed their menu to cater to a new demographic of customer that we were bringing them. And that part of it was really cool. And it's one of the reasons why when we pushed to extend south, 70% of the residents in the district said, I'm willing to pay for an extension. I'm willing to tax myself through a special assessment and a sales tax to bring that benefit south through Midtown to the Country Club Plaza, because they've seen it. They've seen it firsthand. And again, downtown, we didn't have the luxury of having an existing system. So we had a lot of businesses really worried that they were going to be impacted by construction and that the benefits at the end of the process wouldn't be there. And what's helpful to us now is, as part of our coaching and part of our planning with businesses, we can try to do everything. Construction's, you know, going to be painful. There's really no way around it. It's sort of the price of progress in many cases, and we're building a 50-year investment. But the belief is, and we've demonstrated that downtown, that it's going to be worth it. And we've got proof of that, and it makes it a little more tolerable. So yeah, we're excited, and we expect the economic opportunity for development in terms of the total benefit will be even greater in Midtown than it is downtown in terms of the opportunities, because there's just more land, it's less dense, there's more businesses. It's not just a downtown, you know, it's a neighborhood. So we're touching residential neighborhoods, and we're touching small business in a different kind of way. And it's obviously a longer route.
Love it, and I'm excited. I live right by UMKC, so I'm staying there as long as I can till at least 2025. And I wish I was going to UMKC, you know, when it would be down there. But you mentioned a couple challenges, you know, construction and, you know, getting people's buy-ins on that. How about a global pandemic? How did that affect you all? And how are you guys kind of looking forward and attacking all that?
So it's really been crazy, right? For everybody, for businesses, for services like ours, who are sort of challenged with needing to continue to provide essential transportation, but right sizing. So obviously right now we're serving a downtown neighborhood and business district that's heavily influenced by office, by special event venues, by large gatherings. And so we've cut back our service about 50%. We cut back our hours, so we're only running to 9 p.m. instead of midnight or 1 in the morning. We're running less service, but we're still running, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we're positioning ourselves to be ready to renew service, raise service, and help be a part of downtown's recovery when the time is right. So, you know, we're monitoring. Obviously, we had to institute immediately overnight tons of mitigations, midday cleanings of cars, operations and maintenance procedures, to protect our staff, mask requirements on board, hand sanitizer, all of the things that many of your businesses did. We had to do sort of at scale and quickly. And we had to find ways to try to also protect our employee base, because we've got a small staff, relatively speaking, of about 40 total employees, many of which who are really specially trained in their areas, whether it's streetcar operators or technicians. And we don't have a big, deep bench to pull from. So when you start thinking about things like, illness from COVID or quarantine effects, we really are sort of high risk in that regard, because we don't have a deep bench. So we saw ridership. We reduced service about 50%. We saw ridership decline about 65% over that same period, which you'd expect, because we were encouraging people not to ride, essential trips only for a long period of time. And just knowing that there's just less activity downtown, that's to be expected. So I will say this, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This isn't doomsday for transit forever. We think, it's going to be a long road to recovery in terms of, looking at our historic numbers. We lost a lot of businesses downtown, and we continue to have businesses struggle. And seeing those come back, right, those generators, is going to be some time before we can really stabilize. But we've got still a pretty solid base. We're carrying a few thousand trips a day, and we stand ready to ratchet our hours back up to help feed businesses, to help feed activities downtown as soon as, right, the regulatory environment and the climate around public health is in a position that will allow us to do it. I will say, we're fortunate. We have large cars. We have no fare, so easy on, easy off. The general reaction for folks who choose to ride is they've been very comfortable with it. So it's not like, you're packed in and there's not a lot of room. There is room. There are mitigations. It is a viable option, and we haven't had any issues with that from that standpoint with regards to sort of public ridership and resulting impacts. But it's going to be a long road, and like I said, our goal is to stand ready for recovery. And as Donna's chimed in, we also provide face masks for folks who don't have them, and that's a whole. When we started that, there were some questions about, would people comply, right? Would they fight us on the mask requirements? And I guess kudos to Kansas City, because we had 99% compliance right off the bat. And the fact that we had masks for people who didn't have them, they were very amenable with accepting them and using them. And so very few issues with mask enforcement on board. And folks have obviously acclimated to that as a norm, and it's just become part of the experience. But even from the very beginning, people were the compliance rate was better than we anticipated.
I love hearing all of that, and the support that you're providing throughout the city, and especially your optimism that it's not doomsday and there's light at the end of the tunnel. And we've worked our way through such a traumatic year and a challenging time, and the support that you guys have continued to provide through transportation and those that need to get throughout the city is fantastic. So trying to stay along that line of positivity and optimism, what is it that throughout your time working on these projects that you're most proud of, and what are you most looking forward to and excited about through the expansion and into the new journeys that you guys are starting?
Gosh, well, what are we most proud of? I mean, as a father of 3 little young girls and women now, it's really awesome to know, right, in 2005, when we started the conversation about the idea, sort of the state of downtown Kansas City, where we were, how public transportation was viewed. And now you go and you see young kids who are going to be growing up with a streetcar and transit as part of their downtown experience, right? That's going to be something that, as they look back on their experience, they're becoming accustomed to. And obviously just the transformation of urban core and bringing people and jobs back. So, we brought a whole new, a large percentage of the region to public transit and to downtown. And obviously, as we extend the impacts of this, it's powerful stuff, because what we're building is 50-year investments. It's why they're really hard to do. It's why we hadn't done them in a long time. It takes incredible partnerships across, we can, as a streetcar authority, do a lot of things, right? We need to rely on the city. We need to rely on our partners at the HCA. We need to rely on elected officials. We need to navigate a really complicated federal environment, regardless of what administration's in place, over multiple administrations, because what we're talking about is things that take 10 years to make happen from idea to completion. And, multiple mayors, multiple presidents, multiple, congressional representatives, change in elected leadership locally. And so that's the toughest part for these big things. And it's why it just takes folks who are committed to the vision of why it's important, because we're so short-sighted, rightfully so, right? The economy's rough. A lot of people are really, really struggling. And that's just the fact of the matter, and local governments are included. And then coupled on top of that, right, social media pressure, everything's about instant gratification and cost. And so the idea of making investments in our community that are really intended not for the return in year 1 or year 3, but the return in year 10 and 15 and 30 are really, really hard things to do, because we don't do them very often, right? Because they have big numbers, because they're hard deals to pull together. And just getting over the hump, seeing those things that, right, are really changing the culture around public transit and changing really the face of our city, in a way that's making our city a better place. We talk about the streetcar as a thing, but what it's done to elevate the urban experience downtown for how people, navigate our city, and, how they experience the river market and the crossroads, and some of the things that, the streetcar in and of itself is a little bit of an experience, but it's really awesome that we get to showcase the best of the things our city has to offer for people who, many of which would never have seen them, right? They would have gone to Sprint Center, hung out in the Power and Light District, and gone home, maybe not stopped in the crossroads or not stopped in the city market, the river market and those are right. Those are the things that make our city a really great place. And so just being a part of connecting the dots in that sense. And I think so that's the long-term things. So the other things I would give a shout out to Donna, and I could have mentioned it under pandemic, but I'll just mention it generally, is how we've used streetcar. And we've said it from the beginning that it's, we want to use the opportunity, we want to leverage the opportunity. Yes, we're building a piece of capital infrastructure, but how do we make that more than just a transit vehicle and a transit operation? How do we leverage it to add value to businesses, to neighborhoods, to partners? We've done a lot, even through the course of the pandemic, with engaging artists, with doing a fashion show on board the streetcar, with partnering with the Negro Leagues on a 100-year anniversary and Buck O'Neill's birthday. And so thinking about how we leverage our assets, how we leverage our system to sort of blow wind in the sails of these other things in the community that we take a lot of pride in, elevates our streetcar experience. It elevates our image and our brand. It leverages it too in ways that add value to these other things that are really, really important and special in Kansas City. So kudos to her for building great partnerships and maintaining great partnerships with lots of people, and just thinking outside the box about how do we do this in a way that maximizes the benefits we can bring, both from a rider standpoint, from a ratepayer standpoint, and from a community partner standpoint. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer to your question.
Perfect. Nope, that was a great answer. Thanks, Tom. Well, first I want to congratulate you on the recent official federal funding that you all received earlier this year. Really exciting stuff. One of the largest grants that this community has seen. So maybe speak to that. How did that come about? The partners you utilized for that, and what that means for us and the streetcar.
Yeah, so you're referring to, we just inked a $174 million federal grant to help pay 50% of the cost of our Main Street Extension project. And it's the largest transportation grant the region's ever received. And it's the result of, I mentioned partnerships and connecting the dots. So many people, from the petitioners of the Transportation Development District to elected officials, obviously, to our board, who stepped up and said, we're going to fund, $5 million of due diligence that are required for us to be eligible to even compete, right? So these federal programs are so competitive, you have to go at risk in a big way to just try to pass the initial prerequisites to be competitive, and then to work through our regional congressional delegation to say, you know what, Missouri's got the short end of the stick. We've got these national transportation programs that are being funded every year, and they're funding our peer metropolitan areas across the country to build out big regional systems. And we haven't tapped those resources in 25 years or longer. Some of the last projects to be funded out of these federal programs were in the mid 90s from in St. Louis. And so we've got the largest national discretionary bucket of transportation monies going to Denver, Minneapolis, Dallas, Portland, Seattle, many of the places that we're competing with across the country. And we're not doing our jobs locally to take advantage of those federal opportunities. And sort of acknowledging, shining a light on that, and then focusing in on where are there viable opportunities? How do we do the work? How do we motivate? And it's about motivating action from elected officials and from our boards, and making the case that this is worth investing in. We've got confidence, we've got a great team. We think we can navigate the process. We've got a congressional delegation in the right seats. And so let's go. And let's all have some faith that we can get to the end. And so, yeah, we can't really underscore the significance. That project would not have happened but for that federal partnership. And obviously with what's happening in Washington, D.C., it's crazy, right? It's crazy to think that you're going to be able to navigate a federal process, and we were able to do it. And there's a lot of people to thank for making that a reality. But that's $175 million in the investment of hard capital infrastructure and jobs in Kansas City that wouldn't otherwise be coming to our region. So the economic infusion, not just for what we're building, but in jobs and the construction trades for 3 to 4 year period is going to be a huge shot in the arm. And so, yeah, big deal. And it's a little bit of a blueprint, we think, for future projects even beyond these. We've learned a lot in how to navigate this federal process, and we think we can do more, and we can show a greater return to the region. So that's where our focus shifts after these projects are done.
You guys certainly have a lot to be proud of, and you have given our city and everyone on this call so much to be proud of as well. So thank you for that, and we're super excited to see this all take place and happen. It's become a landmark and a tourist attraction of Kansas City. We get to work in Union Station all the time, and getting to walk through that lobby and hear the kids excited, to go and ride the streetcar and all of that. So that's a lot of fun. And so we're proud to have you and proud of all the work that you've been doing. We've had a couple of questions drop into the chat. And so one of them, Leah Satterfield, has asked, after the Main Street expansion, is there planned a next expansion, or are we just looking at the immediate future of expansion right now?
So two things. One, I haven't even spoke to it. We've got a second expansion that we've already funded through a different federal program to connect to Berkeley Riverfront Park. And that's going to be a big deal. It's a much smaller project, but to connect from the river market to Berkeley Riverfront, our city was founded on the river. We have a beautiful, amazing park on the riverfront that's somewhat underutilized, and that really sits on an island surrounded by interstates and railroad tracks and isn't very accessible. So bridging that divide between River Market and the riverfront to provide the now 30,000 plus residents who live downtown really easy access to that amenity is going to be, again, a quality of life boost for everything we're trying to achieve in a broader sense with building a really livable city. And obviously, we're going to also be a shot in the arm for Fort KC and their efforts to develop the riverfront in a mixed-use, higher density sort of way, because we're solving a connectivity problem, and we're bringing additional value that makes their development opportunities, frankly, more attractive and more valuable. So that is moving forward on the same schedule. We're fully funded. We're doing final design. We think we'll be under construction with that riverfront extension, and ultimately, we would like that to go all the way east over towards the Isle of Capri or Hotel Casino KC, where we can have a transit hub connecting to Northland bus routes, maybe an airport express from a new terminal, things north of the river. And so we're excited about that. And then there are other conversations there about where we go beyond those two projects. We're having conversations. I did a presentation just two in the last 2 weeks to North Kansas City and to Northland Chamber of Commerce on opportunities to extend north beyond the Missouri River and to connect the Northland as part of a longer term strategy. And obviously, we've got current plans and some thoughts on east-west connections in Midtown on corridors like Linwood and or Independence Avenue. So or KU Med and 39th Street, which is a major employment hub and job creator. So lots of opportunities. We always thought that this Main Street extension, because it really transformed the purpose of the system from being a downtown circulator to being a service of regional significance. We also felt like that would light a fire under a broader regional conversation about, right now that system is much more relevant to people in Northeast Johnson County or South Kansas City, right? Because we're closer and you can see the impacts. So more to come, to be sure.
Exciting stuff. Thanks, Tom. Rachel asked a really good question, and I was actually wondering something similar. Did you all, when you were planning this, did you all look at any other cities that have a current streetcar plan?
Yep, we looked at all of them, to be honest. Portland was probably the best known, but Tucson, there was Salt Lake City, there was a handful of other legacy systems, but Portland was probably the poster child. And we borrowed a lot from these systems, and then we made decisions that were very uniquely Kansas City based on our context. And it's been a really interesting transformation because we did the circuit. We tried to learn everything we could as input into our process. And now we're hosting people from all over the country, wanting to know what we did, what's working really well, sort of best practices that we've been able to foster here, given our success. And that's been sort of a cool transformation.
I like it. Steve McLean has one as well. He says, I'm curious what challenges or priorities you have in building impactful partnerships that are relevant to your writer's experience.
Well, Donna may be able to help with this question. I mean, I think we had some core stakeholders just based on how we were formed, and the downtown council and the city market and the neighborhoods that we serve, that made for really logical opportunities for partnership from the very early days. I think, you know, she could tell you her limitations as she thinks about partnership opportunities. You know, our own staff capacity, obviously. How do we do things that are impactful and don't dilute the other partnerships and other efforts that we have? So how we balance our own internal capacity and just our ability to make an impact and have an impact. Yeah, Donna, any other thoughts on that from your end?
Well, Tom, I was also thinking about the unique partnership that we have with the city, with ATA, and then our contractor, Herzog. So it's not just about the authority, but all the others, big players. Like, I'm not sure if people realize that all of our assets are actually owned by the city. And so maybe you can explain that relationship.
Yeah, so we've got a really complicated sort of unique organizational structure just based on necessity. So I talked about these transportation development districts. These are the legal mechanisms by which we capture revenue from taxes. So we've got a taxing district, and then we have the city, who's the builder and owner of the system. And then we have the Streetcar Authority, who really oversees finances, operations, maintenance, expansion, communications. And then we contract much of our underlying work to private contractors who are professionals in the realm of operations and maintenance. So we have to work across all, and then we have also an agreements with the ATA to leverage many of their regional capacities on regional transit coordination, route planning, some maintenance activities that they're performing to the regional call center, things to create synergy and integration to make sure that our route is one route in a regional transit system, not just a standalone streetcar line, but it's intentionally integrated. And so we knew we had a unique sort of requirement of representing the streetcar ratepayers and the board but we didn't want to create a bunch of redundancy in the regional transit sort of in the regional transit system. And so that's why we have, we've sort of tapped everybody for doing what they do really well already and what existing capacities already exist, but that does require cooperation. It requires coordination and partnership in a really unique sort of way. And that's sort of my job, is to just kind of connect the dots with all these parties and make sure that we're keeping people at the table, that we're all rowing in the same direction, that everybody's doing what they should be doing. And as long as we got good people, and we do, that works out really well. And like I said, the city builds things. They're great at building things. AT has been a great regional partner, and we've been able to bring in, local representation and some laser focus on streetcar issues to make this as good as it can be.
I love it. This is all fantastic information. So, Tom, we've got a lot of fantastic business representation on this call this morning. So final question, how can the business community that's represented here and the chamber and throughout Kansas City continue to support the efforts of the streetcar and continue to make this a successful endeavor for our city?
Great question. Well, I think just continuing to cheerlead it, right? Look for opportunities to help to share the good news. I think we will, as the construction starts to advance downtown and through Midtown, we're going to be working closely with the neighborhood associations in Midtown KC now. And so you'll be seeing information there, no doubt. Donna, we need to make a plug for our construction website, which is what is it? Remind me.
BuildKCStreetcar.com.
BuildKCStreetcar.com. And there is going to be opportunities for any individuals or businesses or minority women-owned businesses who are looking conceivably for work in the areas of construction or construction-related activities. All of our opportunities for direct business engagement and work opportunities will be posted and made available on that website. And then obviously we're going to have opportunities to through marketing and proactive initiatives that we will be rolling out that are pro-business opportunities. And then I think the bigger thing longer term is, we're engaging with the city and with stakeholders right now and with the chamber through the Big Five Transportation Initiative. And I see Adam on the call. I'm thinking about how do we scale impact in transportation? How do we create a vision for transportation at large that can be something that can help us solve some of our job access challenges, give us a vision that we can be building towards through a variety of means. And we're working hard, and the chamber is working hard already on thinking about the role of public transit and transportation as part of this broader regional vision that we have. So continuing to prioritize transportation and pushing us all collectively to be aggressive as we push that vision forward and not miss an opportunity. And so again, there's opportunities through the chamber directly, I think, to engage in that conversation as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Streetcar Tom. Thank you, Streetcar Donna, for being with us this morning. A fantastic way for us to kick off the new year and our first neighborhood networking event. Donna, I see that you dropped some information into the chat of how to email some ideas and questions, and then the website as well. So I would encourage everyone that's on the call this morning to jot that information down and take advantage of it. We are going to get into the networking part of this, but before we do, I'm going to make just a couple of announcements. We are back on track with every other Friday neighborhood networking event. So our next one will be Friday, February 12th, followed by a fantastic new networking event that we're starting. It is face-to-face speed networking with a twist because it will stay virtual. So we are utilizing a great new platform that allows some better functionality, different than Zoom. So Brandon will be sending out to all of you some ways to get that going. It's through AirMeet. We'll ask that you create a username prior to, but some information coming out to walk you through that. But it should be a lot of fun and exciting. So join us with that on February 17th. And then we will be doing on February 26th, a minority-owned business panel for our neighborhood networking with a handful of different members that we have with us. So stand by for some great information of who we have hosting and guest hosting with us. Brandon is your go-to on that. So look for some great dad jokes in his emails and just ways to keep you engaged. So again, Tom, Donna, thank you for being with us this morning. Brandon, I'm going to send it back to you to get us going with some networking. Oh, wait, one more thing. Sorry. Vicki Kulikoff, who is our small business director, is with us. She is going to drop some information into the chat as well. We are getting ready to kick off our small business celebration season. This is always something that's very exciting as we get into the new year and roll through the spring. Lots of great information about that. So Vicki's going to put that into the chat and can answer any questions that you have regarding our top 10 celebration and all of the festivities that we have for small business superstars within our community. All right, now that's enough for me. Brandon, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Nope, that's all good. All good stuff to know. Appreciate that. All right. Well, I think a lot of you have done this before, but we're just going to jump into some breakout rooms. Turn your cameras on, introduce yourself, and then talk about a goal that you have set for this year, whether it's personal or professional. I think it's good to get it out there and maybe have some people hold you accountable for that. So I'm going to send you all away for about 10 minutes, and then we'll jump back in and do it all over again. Welcome back, guys. And sorry, we're going a little bit over, but you know, first networking event of the year, you got to get all the networking stuff out. And so just want to thank everyone for coming. We do have our next one on the 12th, February 12th. So keep an eye out for that email. Katie, did you have any other closing remarks or best wishes?
Best wishes to you all through the weekend. I would like to encourage you all, if you haven't seen on our social media pages or via our YouTube channel, in the Zoom where it happens. We did talk with David Prente a couple of weeks ago. He's got a great one to view. Casey Venna, general manager with Country Club Plaza, and then Amos King is up next Thursday. His episode will drop. So it's a lot of fun. It's just a talk show where we get to sit down with leaders of organizations and great members like you. So check it out, see what you think, share it, like it, retweet it. And that's all I have. So have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you all again on the 12th, if not sooner.
Go Chiefs!
Woo! Go Chiefs. See y'all.